Hey, everybody. It's JJ Conway. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. We're going to be covering one of my favorite topics, and that is real estate investing. Today is our first class of the new year for Real Estate Investing 101, which means we're going to start with the basics. And over the course of the next 12 months, you are going to get a solid foundation in real estate investing, no matter where you are in the country. And depending on which country you're in, where you are in the world. All right. But so today we're going to be doing real estate investing 101. I'm super excited to be here with you. Now, a couple of announcements. Excuse me. Couple of announcements before we get into it. One, this is for those of you who are new to my Real Estate Investing 101 class. This class is how I fundraise for my Global Youth Initiative efforts. And as you'll see on the next slide now, I am now doing Global Youth Initiative of Erath County and Global Youth Initiative of the Arklatex, or Northwest Louisiana. So this is our fundraiser. I encourage you to PayPal or Cash App Queen of Cash Flow a donation of any amount. I know we're not supposed to talk about money right up front, but I'm going to tell you something. This content we're going to talk about today is going to help you create generational wealth for you and your third and fourth generations. And if you learn what I'm teaching tonight, it is going to make a massive shift in your ability to generate wealth on demand. And so when it comes to doing something different that we've never done before, often that requires a difference in our energy, a difference in our approach, a difference in our status quo. Now, I'm the queen of always learning and taking all the free stuff and never buying into your program, right? So I understand. It's like in the ministry. You get the lay members that you were for your pastors, right? So I understand that. But I'm gonna tell you something else I learned. It made a huge difference in my ability to succeed in my business and to succeed at life. And that is when you give something of value for receiving something of value, it shifts your energy and it shifts you from scarcity mode to prosperity mode. It shifts you from feeling like there's not enough and you got to hold tightly to everything you have. It shifts you into being able to be generous and loving and walk in those higher energies, those higher values of ourselves, our mind, and come with open hands so that we can ultimately receive more. So even $1, and those of you who are in business for yourself, I hope you take this for your business. Even charging people who attend your courses $1 creates a shift in your energy and their energy that has reverberations that translate down the line to massive increase in wealth, abundance, and fulfillment of life. All right. So I'm going to ask you, give me your $1, give me your $5, give me your $50, give me your $500. I'm going to take whatever you give me and use it all for those kids on Global Youth Initiative. All right. Couple other announcements before we start. I am not posting these links in the chat, the comments, because Facebook for some reason does not like the active campaign links. But if you know of any speakers or authors who want to be a part of our Healing My Sisters effort, this is a grassroots effort sponsored by my church. It is no cost to speak, no cost to be in the book. If you provide us with a properly formatted chapter, go ahead and apply at that link there, jjclink.com/HMS. And we are also doing the call for speakers for Women Building Wealth Together. This is a much larger conference where people are able to sell. So there is an investment for the speakers, but it's totally worth it. You're going to get 5 times the amount that you invest. And that's at jjclink.com/Women Building Wealth Together. All right. Why is it not going down? All right. So like I said earlier, our benefit partner for this class, whether I'm teaching it today or every third Thursday when I'm doing real estate investing, and when we go back to having in person, like who remembers who was there when we did this in April? Every April, it was an all-day thing, the first Saturday of April, to fund the Global Youth Initiative in April later that month, right? What we do in Global Youth Initiative is we use the John Maxwell team content to help encourage our young people about their individual personalities, discovering their strengths, improving their confidence, helping them understand what kinds of careers and paths to study in college are actually really good for them as far as their strengths would say. And then we also added in, this is my content, non-John Maxwell content, but I also added in my own financial planner content on how to get free money for college. So this is a very popular series of events that we do every April, every October. Although I'll admit, most of the time my October Global Youth Initiative gets pushed to November because of football season. But that's what happens when you live in Louisiana and Texas. So we appreciate donations of any size. You can PayPal or Cash App, Queen of Cash Flow. Put Global Youth Initiative in your comments, and I will make sure all of that money goes towards the Global Youth Initiative. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, gee, JJ, I thought you normally sell a class, and you sell the class and selling the recordings and selling the documents. Like, I like to, give you the documents you need to succeed in this. Selling all of that is how we really made the money for this. However, because I've just moved to Texas, and because I'm still learning how they do real estate in Texas, I actually will prefer not to sell my advanced classes on real estate. I don't want to confuse. Like I'm started to go. I tested out several RIAs. I've got a good one down there, Tim Cook with West DFW RIA, and I really like the group. I'm learning how Texas does business, but I don't ever like to move to a new location. And some of you have been with me for 8 or 9 years now. So every time I move, it's like a year or two. I don't teach the detailed classes until I really get a handle on what's going on in my local. Because even if I say the words, I'm telling you how it worked in Virginia, Maryland, DC, and Baltimore, or Louisiana. Even I say the words and the words come out of my mouth. Anybody who's local is going to want to have information about local. So we're going to keep it at the 101 level this year. So I'm asking you to go ahead. If you knew this was coming, you knew I was going to ask you to support, and you were just going to go buy the class, there's not going to be a class to buy. Go ahead and put in a donation. Actually, I think the class is still out there. I mean, we'll take your donations. I mean, we'll take your buying, but there's not going, that class is not going to be there for a long time. In fact, either tonight or tomorrow, whenever I process this recording, I'm going to take down the 3 years of all my classes that are out there. Okay. They're not 3 years sequential. Like one of them is like 2016. One is 2000. Also, it's 4 years, I'm going to take that down with the details, and I'm going to replace it with this. If you're already in that though, don't worry. You got it for life. I think I've got a slide on that later. If you want to learn more of the details after you hear what I have to say, I got down here several REIAs. That's Real Estate Investor Associations. Those are real estate investor groups. You might hear REIG. These are the people you want to connect with on the local level to help you take what I'm telling you and take it to the next level. So now let me say a minute on that real quick. Okay. Now, if you are an advanced investor and you've got like 65 units, I'm not saying you won't get anything out of this, because anytime I listen to somebody talk about real estate, I always enjoy it and I always get something out of it, right? But we're not going to talk about private lending and putting together syndicates. My private lending discussions are going to be very high level, very 101 level, so that people who are new to real estate can decide whether or not this is something they want to do. All right. And I've had people do that. I've had people show up to my class and ask all these advanced questions. And I'm like, dude, this is not that class. All right. Now I work with Alan Cowgill. If you want to learn more details, my private lending class sends you to his class first. And then we talk about how to incorporate private lending strategies for somebody who doesn't like to take on debt. Okay. So we're not digging deep like that today. All right. That's an advanced topic. And all of these have more advanced topics. We're going to hit the wave tops, and we're going to give you what you need to know today to see if any of these things are going to be working for you so that you can go and invest if that's what you want to do. All right. Here's the schedule of the classes that we're going to have coming up. Again, these are all 101s. You won't see the tax sale riches. You won't see all of those advanced classes. We're not doing that this year unless I get to a point where I feel confident that I can answer advanced questions about Texas. We're just going to stick with this, and I'm going to refer people to their local RIA groups. Okay. Little bit about building wealth together. Let me tell you something. We are not about get rich quick. I believe that real estate is one of the fastest ways to build wealth. Although crypto is starting to challenge me on that. I don't have the sustainability info on that to really be able to say more. But one thing we are in this group is we are get rich right. There's a lot of legit ways to get rich. And sometimes people have goals that getting rich isn't really what they need to do. Okay. So we look at ways to build wealth that work for them. We look at education, ethics, accountability, and we wrap all of that in financial investment and entrepreneurial education. I want to educate you so you can make informed decisions about your life. Let me tell you who I am, a little bit about JJ Conway. I know most of y'all know me, but if we've got anybody new on today, I want you to know who's talking to you and why I even think I have something to say on this. All right. I've been a financial coach since 1998. Larry Burkett helped me get out of debt. That rhymes. Larry Burkett helped me get out of debt. I couldn't afford the $8 for his cassette tape class, so he made me promise that if he sent it, that I would teach somebody else with his materials once I got out of debt. And I did that and discovered I loved helping people win with money. And so I've been doing that ever since I got out of debt the first time in 1998. I say first time, you'll see that I became a real estate investor with our first purchase of a property in 1999. But then I got lured into the whole sexiness of leveraging properties and other people's money. And well, you're not really an investor if you don't have 20 hard money lenders lined up to support you. And I reintroduced debt back into my life, and I thought it would all work out, but ended up coming home from a military trip, house sold, stuff thrown out. Ex-husband thought he could do better. And when the dust settled, thanks to some of those things that I signed that allow him to sign for me when I'm gone, I ended up with $845,000 of divorce debt. Now you fast forward 12 years, I'm financially secure, stay-at-home mom. I don't have to work if I don't want to. I work when I want to, and I work when it's fun. If it's not fun, I don't do it. Now, I'm not saying that to impress anybody today, okay? I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying that to impress upon you that it is possible. It is possible to have the financial freedom to live your fullest life and your highest calling. And I know that I can help you make that happen through financial and investment education. How does that sound tonight, huh? Does that sound like something you want? All right, let me share with you my big why. My oldest tells me I need to get a new picture. I tell him, all right, fine, let's go get you a new headshot. Because this picture was taken 2 years ago, and he is now this tall with dreads down to here. And this is just not a very good representation. But when I started teaching classes, this was my big why. The little one wasn't there yet. He was a surprise blessing in my 40s. But one of the things that I had made up in my mind is that my kids, my child, and later my kids, was never going to sleep in another moldy basement apartment. We were never going to have to sleep at a Walmart parking lot because we didn't have a place to stay and we didn't have money for a hotel. That was my initial goal. I was going to make sure that unless this child, this oldest child you see in the middle, unless he made some really bad life decisions, he was never going to have to go from grocery store to grocery store to eat free samples for dinner. That was my big why. And now that I'm in the place where I'm at, and now that the little one's come along, of course, he's part of that as well. But now that I'm in the place that I'm at, my big why has changed. And so I like to call this next slide my big why 2.0. And this is a street in Baltimore where I've invested. This is another street that I pulled from Shreveport. It is not a street that I've invested in, but you can see my house over there over here, and you can see all these boarded up houses, and you can see that there are communities out there that need revival and restoration. And there are communities out there of people who are working real hard to make ends meet, and they can't achieve that dream of home ownership. And I really feel called to change communities by becoming resourced with both the money, the connections, and the resources that are needed to get in there and change these communities, to rebuild the houses, to restore home ownership, to create programs for the children to have financial education, and so that nobody else has to live the life that I lived unless it's of their own choice. Now, I understand that the Lord sometimes has a seasoning of chastening, and I'm not taking away from anybody's calling or anybody's anointing, but there are a lot of things that I suffered that was point blank my fault. And for years, I blamed my ex-husband. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that gave him the permission to do the things that he did. Woo! Now that's a whole nother class. All right. All right. So why do I love real estate so much? Okay. Like I said, there's many ways to build wealth and there are many ways to profit from real estate. Okay. The thing about well, I think I have that on another slide. The thing about real estate is that you can profit from real estate, whether you own the property itself, whether you are involved in industries that are related to it, or whether you are involved in ancillary services that support those who own the properties. Okay. And so here I have a chart of 20 different ways to profit with real estate. And you look at this list, and I'm going to fast forward that here. I've shaded these ones here. This grouping here are the ones that I have, my opinion, this is my opinion. I believe it's an informed opinion, but it's my opinion that it's easier to profit in these ways without buying the property. And furthermore, if somebody doesn't have a lot of money to start with, I mean, you're 800 something $1,000 in debt. You don't know how you're going to put food on the table. You've been working so hard and you feel like you got nothing to show for it. You're in this toxic environment and your health is failing and you just wonder, is there things gonna ever get better? And you don't know how to do anything that you can do to change your life. Well, these are things here that you can do that don't cost thousands of dollars, that you can start profiting in real estate, make the thousands of dollars, and then move forward to other investments. You can pay off your debt. You can start investing. You can start building something for you. You might even acquire your own first house with these strategies. Okay. So, I mean, can y'all tell I'm excited about this? Y'all drop me some likes or some loves if you can feel the energy right now. To me, this is one of the most powerful things that helped me turn my life around. And I'm excited to share it with you today. All right, so we're going to start with a little bit of foundation. All right. Why real estate? Like I said, I had something else on this, and here it is. It's very important in any kind of investment to diversify where your money is, because you never know which sector of the market is going to do well. And generally speaking, financially speaking, one market's doing well, something else is not doing well. And so we want to look at different ways to build wealth. However, as a financial planner, I have rarely seen anybody ethically and repeatably, and by repeatably, I mean it works for everybody. You know, some things work for some people and some things work for other people, but real estate, I have seen people with all personality types. I have seen people with all kinds of backgrounds. I have seen it work for people with all kinds of financial standings. It's the only one that I've seen that's been ethical and repeatable to build financial independence in as little as 3 years. Okay. I'm going to tell you, people always want more exciting and sexy ventures, but as a financial planner, I have more people come to me after those things fail and after they ended up worse. Okay. Now, I will say, as a little bit of a side note, right now in my personal life, I am seeing some great results with crypto. In fact, I'm looking to learn more and more and more about it. But because it's so new, I can't replace real estate with crypto just yet for those who don't have enough disposable income with which to invest. So if you have lots of income and you paid all your bills and you are debt free and you've got your 6-month savings account and you are, your kids got their college fully funded, you got your retirement fully funded, you're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to show you and connect you with the people that are helping me with crypto, right? But if you're in debt and you're struggling, there's just some things that I'm a little, I like it, but I wouldn't give it to you just yet. Okay. So this is the first time in 8 years that I've updated this slide. This is the first time in 8 years something other than real estate has been on this slide. Okay. All right. So we are going to talk about foreclosure. So you hang tight, maybe about 20 minutes or so. The thing about real estate, and the reason so many people lose money in real estate, even though I'm telling you today, it's one of the most ethical and repeatable ways to build financial independence quickly. The reason a lot of people do not make money in real estate, and the reason a lot of people lose money in real estate, is because they do not follow the number one rule of real estate. The number one rule of real estate investing is you make your money when you buy. I'm going to say that again. You make your money when you buy. Let's say it one more time for the people in the back, y'all. You make your money when you buy. Okay? When you acquire the property, you already have done your calculations, you've done your research, and as much as is within your control, you already have profit the minute you sign your name on the dotted line. You're not going into negative cash flow every month, hoping that one day the property will appreciate and the rents will go up. No, 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 no. That is not how JJ Conway teaches you how to invest in real estate, because I want you, look, they don't call me the queen of cash flow for nothing. I want you to have money in your pocket, not money going out. The point is to have more money in your pocket. All right. And so a property that you acquire cheap enough will make you money. And if you ever need to unload it, if you bought it cheap enough, you can quickly unload it to another investor. That's why I recommend 70 to 80% cost to value. All right. Now that sounds real simple, but it's not easy. And if it was easy, everybody would do it and everybody would be rich. You know, it's like losing weight or being nice to your kids. It sounds so simple, but it ain't easy. So if you're wanting to get started in real estate investing, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is be real with yourself about whether or not you got money to invest. And if you have more time than money, if you've got no savings, if your credit is trash, you don't have any experience in real estate, then I'm going to recommend you start with bird dogging and wholesaling. And honestly, I'm going to follow what Sherman Ragland was saying in his most recent 21 days class and say, skip bird dogging and just start with wholesaling. You'll see why later. Y'all have heard me talk about this a couple times, but you know, we gonna break it down for you. Now, this is what I call the time money continuum. I know this is an old slide and I know it is poorly done. I just haven't had the energy to go back through the trouble of getting it re-registered and redoing it. So this is my slide. When you see all those different areas of real estate that I had listed on that big slide, and I put them here in a continuum. This side over here on the left is where the investors have more time than money. And this side over here on the right is where the investors have more money than time. If you don't have any money, you don't have any credit, you don't have any problems, because I'm going to tell you to stay on the side over here with the investors who have more time than money. Now, you'll notice private lending is on there twice, because you can be a private lender with a little bit of money, or you can be a private lender with a lot of money. All right. But the bottom line with this continuum is that if you are helping, oops, went too far. If you are helping investors who have more money than they have time to do the research with the properties, they will compensate you with the money. So it's a continuum, and the money continues to go back and forth. You make money, you invest, they make money, they invest. It's just a continual cycle, and it's a win, win, win. All right. So let me talk a little bit about bird dogging and wholesaling. And we've got a whole class on wholesaling 101 and driving for dollars 101 that I am going to go into more details on these. But I'm not going to talk a lot about bird dogging, but I am going to cover the concept. The first time I heard about this concept, I thought it was a scam, y'all. And I think I was at my ex-mother-in-law's sunroom reading a book from I was about to say Carlton Sheets. I was reading some book on real estate and it talked about how you find properties for somebody. I was like, I'm not going to find properties for somebody. I ain't got time for that. And you'll hear more about her in a little bit. She's an amazing investor. And actually, I think she's the one who should teach this class. But I'm the one with the time. So there you go. But bird dogging is you're finding a property for another investor to buy. The investor doesn't have the time to scour your neighborhood, but you know your neighborhood like the back of your hand. You get in there and find the properties that look like somebody really needs to give it some TLC, or that owner really wants to sell it in a hurry, and you give that information to an investor. Couple of key things about doing this. One, you got to have an investor list, and you got to have people that are like serious, because there's a lot of people out there that call themselves real estate investors and they ain't serious. All right. They kicking the tires. They're taking course after course after course, but they are not the real deal. I'll show you when we get in driving for dollars 101, I'll show you how to find out which investors are the real deal and where to find them. And then you can get to know who they are, what kind of properties they like, what zip codes they like to work in, and what qualifications make a good deal for them. And then you can find them those properties, and they will compensate you depending on the value of the deal. Now, I will say with bird dogging, some states forbid this. And so there's creative ways for bird dogs to get paid. And when I first started in real estate investing, it was not when I read that book because I thought this was ridiculous. I will admit I was short-sighted, but years later, I took Sherman Ragland's 21 Days to Real Estate Riches, and I started doing wholesaling. And what I did was I paid bird dogs $5 a lead for any address, $25 if they could track down the owner's name and phone number. And I would just pay them. It was some of you on here today, you may have been one of those and got a check from Punchbug Properties. That was my company back then. I had a little red Beetlebug car. And then I decided to become a realtor because I thought, oh, well, this has got to be the next step. I'm going to go get into the MLS, and I'm going to be able to see all the juicy details of the properties. And as soon as I became a realtor, Long and Foster was like, yeah, no, you can't do that anymore. So you have to be very careful about bird dogging, and you have to also be very careful about how you structure your deals, because jail is not a good look. I don't care what they say. Orange is not the new black. All right. Wholesaling is similar, but it takes bird dogging to the next level. So your wholesalers are going to lock down the price. Oh, y'all, forgive me. I forgot to dial into the free conference call. And I know people aren't used to us doing that because for a while we were doing international number. That's not, I'm not calling no international number. I know for a while I was trying to do Clubhouse, and because I was doing Clubhouse, I got out of the habit of doing free conference call, and we lost a lot of our regular Thursday night people who were dialing in to the free conference call. And so even though I don't think there's anybody on, because we have to get used to that again, I don't want them to dial in and I'm not there. Okay, so just give me a second. Let me make sure I did this right. Enter the PIN. Okay. Recording has started, and all right. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate you. We're broadcasting this to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different platforms. And so I'm looking at the total number of people who are on. I'm like, whoo, I didn't lose anybody. Woo-hoo-hoo. All right. Okay. So wholesaling is like taking bird dogging to the next level. So bird dogging is finding the property. Wholesaling is locking down that these people are really ready to sell by putting a contract in place. They then assign or sell that contract to another investor. In some jurisdictions where, like I said, how bird dogging was illegal in some places, in some jurisdictions, you can't really do wholesaling, or you can't do it. Wait, I didn't mean to say it that way. You can't assign a contract without a lot of rigmarole. And some places and some contracts and bodies that you work with will expressly forbid you to do it. Now, they can't ever tell you can't sell your interest, right? So there's ways to get around that by perhaps buying it in the name of a to be formed LLC, and then structuring the LLC to handle all of those details without the seller being privy to all those kinds of things. Okay, that's an advanced topic. We're not going to talk about too much of that today. But the bottom line with wholesaling is I find a property that's for sale. I negotiate with the owner. I lock down a really juicy price, 70% of value to cost, and 70% cost to value. And then I now take that contract and I assign it to another investor. That investor buys the house. But because I did all that hard work, I am well paid for saving that investor a huge amount of time and energy doing the research. I don't actually close on it. I get a check at closing. This is very successful when you have built your investor network and you know who's buying and who's selling and what they are looking for, okay?
Your input is invalid.
Oh, that's not good. Hold on. What did I do?
Please enter your PIN followed by the pound. Thank you.
All right, let's put that in Q&A mode because I don't want that to happen again. *61. Oh, wait. Okay, I don't know what I did there. Okay, well, if you're okay, so sorry, y'all. Okay, so you don't actually close on the property. Now, I'm going to be teaching Wholesaling 101. Wholesaling 101 and Driving for Dollars 101, you'll notice they're the same color thing because the class used to be together. It used to be a whole morning workshop. We're going to do wholesaling 101, and you can take that class. But if you are local, I would love for you to seek out local investors. In Baltimore, Alan Shanker is the one who found my $3,000 house that I like to talk about in these classes. And the very first real estate class that I actually took, not the book that I ignored in my ex-mother-in-law's sunroom, but the actual first class that I took was from Sherman Ragland of Real Investors, and his 21 days class is all about wholesaling. Okay. So let's go ahead to the next one here. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is tax sales. And the way that this works is that when people don't pay their property tax, the counties, the parishes, they still need to pay their cops, their teachers, and all the things that your jurisdiction is going to cover. They get that money to what the homeowners aren't paying through the tax sales. And generally speaking, whatever kind of tax sale it's going to be, the owner has an opportunity to redeem that property by paying the tax and any fees and interest back to the investor who originally bought the tax at the tax sale. Okay. So if you as an investor pay the tax, we'll talk about different ways you can do that, but you can receive a certain amount of interest if redeemed. Okay. And then some places you're actually getting like a voucher. You're either bidding on the highest price or the lowest interest. So there's different ways of doing it. Let's talk about that on the next slide. All right. And again, I'm not going into super depth about this. Even when we do the tax sales 101, I'm going to give you enough information to get started in your county. But I really do recommend you find a local investor to look over their shoulder. You know, pay them $100 or $200 or $300 and let you flight follow them while they go through this. I'm telling you, it's gonna be so worth it. All right. Next slide. So the different ways that jurisdictions do this, one is tax lien. So when I got started in this in Maryland, they did tax liens. You paid the tax, you got a lien against the property. Once the redemption period was up, you could foreclose because you had a lien against the property. You could foreclose. And if the bank or nobody else paid you off and gave you your interest and everything you were owed as being an investor, well, then you got the property. Okay. Another one is tax deeds, and you might, and so Texas, I understand, is a tax deed state. I don't speak from experience on this yet. All right, this is next on my list to learn. Okay, but from what I understand, you get the deed for a certain amount of price, either at the tax or above the tax, or with a promise to pay for a certain amount, depending on what your county does. I've researched several counties. It seems like they do things a little bit differently. Some are like 25% of the property value. Others are just the tax. It's interesting, but I'm still learning that. But after after the redemption period, you are evicting. So you get the deed, you own the property. If they don't redeem it, you evict them. If they do redeem it, I guess you don't get it. You don't own it anymore, right? Now, when I was in Louisiana, what they had was tax certificates. And this is an interesting one. So this is one I'm working through right now. I've made very good money with tax certificates in Louisiana into my self-directed IRA. So it's all free money, y'all. For tax-free money. I mean, I love tax-free, right? So the way that it works is you are getting part ownership in the property. And once the redemptive period is over, if the homeowners do not redeem it, you can file through the legal system to either get full ownership of it or a partition made where you now own part of it. No matter what they do, you get those proceeds. Okay. And that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. So some of you have been in my tax certificate class for 3 years now. You have followed me as I've gone through this. And I told everybody when we started that class, like, I don't know what I'm doing, y'all, but if you want to follow me, I am willing to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so far, I've only had one ugly and everything else has been real good. And so with these next two, I'm hoping I get the property or at least some good money. Personally, I don't want property in Louisiana right now because I'm in Texas and I don't like being an out-of-state landlord. We'll talk more about that later. All right. Now, if you're in the DMV, the DC area, I encourage you to seek out Ned Carey. I don't know if Baltimore BWI RIA is meeting back again, or if they're still online, but Ned Carey came down And when I'd started building wealth together, he came and taught the class. He taught everybody how to do what I learned to do in Maryland. And he was phenomenal. He started with him and his buddy started with $2,500. And 10 years later, they were doing $2.5 million worth of tax sales every year. All right. So the man knows what he's talking about. And he's a real nice guy. All right. All right. So new construction, you'll notice I don't have a little class blurb here. I am not going to teach a class on new construction because I don't necessarily recommend new construction in today's market. But your jurisdiction may be different. So again, you want to get in connection with your local experts before you make any decisions about which of these strategies work best for you. There's a couple of different ways you can profit from new construction, and just kind of a high level overview. When a developer wants to build a new project, it gets built out in phases. And one of the first things that the builder has to do is go to the bank to get approval for this project. And every time that they want to get more money, they got to go back to the bank and they've got to show that enough interest has been in each phase. So usually, not always, but usually when you invest in a new construction, if you're in the initial phase before they've even broke ground, that's usually the best price you're going to get. Okay. And then each phase ends up costing more because as people see things going on, now everybody wants to do it and they have faith in the developer and they think, oh, this is really going to happen. And the price goes up and up and up. So you can invest in early. I think I have a slide on that. Don't I? Yeah. You can invest in early, right? Buying a pre-construction or phase one, the first couple of streets and houses that they make, put in a small down payment. And before that house is finished, they'll probably have gotten enough of the way where they're starting on the next phase or two, and you can assign that contract or even sell that unit. Now, when I first started real estate investing, a lot of builders did not have their own realtors, and this was easier to do. So I'm not going to say it's not easy to do, especially if you're working with local builders. Like there's one I'm kicking myself that I didn't. It would only been $1,000, a beautiful piece of land, and I didn't take it because it was going to take 6 months to build, and I was looking to move out of my apartment that was charging an arm and leg and had the worst environment ever. I was looking to move out of my apartment into a house, and I didn't want to wait that long. I ended up having to wait that long, and even worse, even if I'd have found the house we ultimately bought, I could have sold that thing because in the time they announced the building of a new high school right around the corner, and the property values went up. Had I invested that $1,000, I would have probably profited about $10,000. So I'm not saying this can't work today. I'm just saying I personally don't have the time, energy, and the desire to do the research that it takes to make sure I don't come out stuck with a property. Okay. Another method, and this is one I never used to recommend either until I saw a friend do it. And she became financially independent with a net worth of $2 million in just 12 years, really. And I was like, it worked. What she did was she bought new construction, held it for rental. Her reasoning, now my thing was, well, that's the highest price. You're not going to have a lot of cash flow. Remember, they call me the queen of cash flow because I want you to put more money in your pocket, not out of your pocket. But she held them for rentals. Her expectation was they were going to have very low maintenance. And then she discovered, oh, this is good, y'all. She discovered that she could rent those properties out as corporate housing to support the military base. So she was able to charge $3,000 to $4,000 a month for each one because the people themselves weren't paying for it. It was corporate housing. And so she was able to pay off those properties in 12 years. So I want you to hear that. These not office condos, these condos and single family homes and townhomes in 12 years, she's got a good, how many did she have? She's got a good $18,000 a month coming in with no mortgage. And she has the net worth of the properties, which when she started buying them was about in the 160s, 170s. And by time this time had passed, now the property values had skyrocketed and they were in the 4s and 500s. Now that your mileage may vary. All right. I got several properties that didn't appreciate like that. All right. But still, I watched her do it. Am I a big fan of taking on loans and doing all that for this? No, I'm not. I'm not. But I'm going to tell you what, it worked for her. Okay. She also had, and let me just say something else on that point. She also had, her husband had the kind of income that had the loans needed to be paid, they had the discretionary income to pay it. See, that's another problem that a lot of people have when they go into debt to buy real estate. They go into debt to buy real estate, but they don't have the discretionary income to cover those properties when they're empty. And so when the properties are vacant, they are left holding the bag. You don't want to be that person, all right? I want you to have more money in your pocket, not less. All right. Another way we're going to talk about real estate is flipping. I know a lot of people have seen the shows, but just to be thorough, flipping is where flipping is, it's interesting because I was listening to the redo of the class that started it for me, and he talked about how even before I came into real estate, flipping was you bought it, you didn't do anything to it, and then you resold it. And what most of us are used to flipping is you buy a discounted property, you fix it up, and then you resell it for a profit. And so I want to caution you on this, okay? You know, that you get a lot of these infomercials that talk about it's so easy, anybody could do it. I made $85,000 on my first deal. And I would caution you to consider that, you know, a lot of these people that have made hundreds of thousands of dollars on their first deal, well, they probably had some kind of background. They may never have done a real estate flip before, but they may be involved in the appraisals, or they may be a general contractor, or they may have family that allows them to do things in a manner where they're not uninformed. They may be inexperienced, but they're not uninformed. Okay. And so if you decide to flip properties, I do want you to consider things other than just how much it costs you to buy it and how much you could sell it for. You got to think about the holding costs. If you're taking a loan, which I don't recommend, but I know a lot of people do it, you got to consider the taxes and do you have to pay for it? And then you got to plan for Murphy to show up because you don't know what you're going to get when you start tearing down walls. In fact, I had a property and we were like, really, I want to tear this down and tear that down and redo this and redo that. And we were like, you know what? We ain't got time for that. We're going to put stuff over it, build a new ceiling and a new wall, and we're just going to roll on in Jesus' name. Because I was like, I don't know what we're going to get when we start pulling things out. And I didn't have the time and energy to deal with mold or to deal with any of those kinds of things. If it wasn't registering, then I wasn't going to worry about it. All right. If you're going to flip, I really do believe that maintaining a solid investor network is critical because of two reasons. Because flipping, a lot of times we think, okay, I'm buying it at an investor low price, I'm fixing it up, and I'm selling it at retail, probably through a realtor or someone like that, or for sale by owner if you have enough experience. But generally speaking, you want to be able to have a good investor network because if something goes wrong, you need to be able to get out of that property. And the people who are going to help you get out of that property are going to be other investors. It kills me when I watch these flipping shows and somebody's poured, $800,000 into rebuilding a house from the ground up. And they're just so tired of it. And they want to walk away and they sell it to an investor and cut their losses. And that investor puts another 400 into it and then sells it for 1.2, 1.5. $2 million. Okay. So let's do the research now and let's bring the solid investor networks who have that kind of that experience to help you. Okay. One of the best things I ever did was when I paid Mary Jo Whalen for her Baltimore City lease. And then she came and looked at the property and she was like, girl, you need to fix this, and this. And by the way, lead rules in Baltimore City are going to hammer you on this, and that. Best $200 I ever spent on my real estate. Let me tell you what. And I don't, and I'm not even there anymore, but I tell you, you want somebody who knows what they're doing to help you if you've never done it before. And you want an investor network so that you have an exit strategy, and you want an investor network so that you have access to investor-friendly trades, investor-friendly realtors, investor-friendly fill in the blank. All right. I always thought I was going to flip more, and then I just ended up keeping stuff. Okay. So here's an example. This example is very personal to me, and you'll find out why in a minute. This is an example where a friend of a friend raised $150,000 from private lenders. And I talk about that in Private Lending 101, which is a class we're going to teach. It is not my preferred method of raising funds for some reasons you probably have already guessed, but just to walk you through this example, $93,000 purchase price. So she raised 150, bought it for 93, and then it was a 50,000 or so renovation. Okay, you can see some of the pictures of it involved in here. Okay, the anticipated sales price was supposed to be 204,000. So if you buy out your investors at 150K plus 12% interest, that still leaves 43K profit for the rehabber. And this project was projected to be done in 5 months. It was a great value for the private investors, except that it didn't sell. As you can see from these very beautiful pictures of what the rehabber did, it was overbuilt for the neighborhood. Now I'm going to put the screen on me for a second. I don't know how many of you were in that first class when I first taught this. If you were, go ahead and drop it in the comments. I know everybody who was in that first class is still with me, but I don't know if they're on tonight. I'm teaching this class and I'm walking through this example, and I'm showing them how to go into the department, the Department of the Maryland Department of Taxation, or whatever that website is that you can look at the land records. And I'm doing the analysis, like we're like, hey y'all, I'm a partner in this deal. Let's work through this deal. And we're working through it. And I'm like, so what does this tell you? Now, I didn't tell them I was a partner. I was like, what does this tell you about this deal? And one of the students is like, yeah, y'all, whoever did this overpaid for it, and they overpriced it, and they overbuilt. And I'm sitting there like, see, this was before Zoom, y'all. So this was all a phone call class. And I'm sitting there like, okay. I'm not getting my money back out of this property. It was so embarrassing. And I don't know if they ever realized it. Later on, I told them. But the bottom line for me is what I realized with this is, look, I can do this. This investor took off. This investor took off with our money. It didn't sell. They overbuilt for the neighborhood. It finally did sell, but they took off with our money. And I was like, she didn't do anything I can't do. And so that's when I actually got my start in renovating properties. Okay, so up till then, I had been a wholesaler and I had been a realtor, and I had done what I'm about to talk to you about next, which was, well, we did have written agreements, but they ended up suing her, and by then she had nothing. So it was kind of, eventually the system tracked it down, but you can't get blood from a turnip. You can get a judgment on your behalf, but if that person doesn't have any money, wait, y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Hold on, let me put up the comment. So the comment here is you got to have those written agreements, and we had written agreements, but by time we tracked her down and sued her, there was nothing left to get. So the process of suing somebody and getting and recouping your costs, it's not just you go to court and you get the money. You go to court and you get a judgment for the money. Now you got to go and take that judgment and go get the money. And if they don't pay the money, then you can try to garnish their wages, but they got to have wages. And little Miss Mama knew how to figure out how to not have any wages. So that's a whole nother story. But you are right. I would never do a real estate investment deal, not even with my best friend, without having something spelled out written. I'm so glad Sherman taught me that. But in this case, it didn't help. All right. So what I was doing back then, before I started renovating houses, was foreclosure consulting. So let's talk a little bit about foreclosures. The premise behind foreclosures is that when a lender or any kind of lien holder isn't getting paid, they can foreclose, which means they can force the sale of the property, the asset, to try to get their money back. You heard me mention this with the tax liens. So in tax lien states, you as the investor, you pay the tax, you get a certain amount of interest back. If they redeem it, if they don't redeem, you can force the sale, you can foreclose. You can force the sale to try and get your money back. And taxes usually are at the front of the pack. A lot of times the banks will take care of that so that they can recoup the asset themselves. But no matter who's foreclosing, there are 3 phases of foreclosure profit. The first one is distressed sellers. And this is what we call pre foreclosures. And this is where I fit in as a foreclosure consultant. Somebody has been missing payments, and now the bank is getting ready to foreclose. The earlier in the process you can catch somebody who's missing payments, the more likely you are to be able to help them overcome this and avoid foreclosure. Unfortunately, most people who are facing foreclosure, they don't, even now, they still don't call me until it's like a week out. And it's like, okay, well, it's going to be real hard for me to negotiate something on your behalf. And so you might as well prepare for to go to foreclosure or sell it very quickly to an investor. Okay. This is the phase of foreclosure where you get the most profit. Okay. This is where you get the biggest amount of profit. And the reason for that is because each subsequent phase carries higher and higher costs that the bank is going to want to recoup. So the next phase of foreclosure, if you can't help them when it's a distressed seller, you can't buy it from them when it's a distressed seller, the next phase is at the auctions. And this is where I put in there cash is king, because generally speaking, those will have to be paid before the by like 2:00 that day. Okay. Sometimes you might get a day, right? But a lot of times they want it right that moment. Okay. And so that's where you're at the auction. You're going to the courthouse at 10:00 on the first Tuesday or whatever it is in your jurisdiction does, and you buy it there on the spot. Okay. If nobody buys it, or if it's priced so low and all the investors stop buying, bidding so low, then the bank often will buy it back. So for example, if a property is worth, because of the COVID, because of the situation, because of damage, because of fill in the blank, whatever, the property's only really worth 20 or 30,000, but the homeowner owns 50,000. The bank is going to be very unlikely to let it go at foreclosure sale for 20,000. They would rather put up the high bid to make sure that they can take that property and then try to sell it and recoup as much of their loan as they can. That's when the property becomes real estate owned. You'll see that in MLS and in other places abbreviated as REO. If you buy an REO, what you're doing is you are buying from the lender after the foreclosure sale. So these are your three phases of the foreclosure. When it's an REO, it's owned by the bank. You don't have to worry about the other seller. When it's at the auction, you're buying it. You don't have to worry about the other seller. You don't have to worry about the person that owned it a day ago, unless your jurisdiction has a redemption period, like a 3-day or a 3-week or a 3-month or whatever it is. Okay. Generally speaking, I haven't heard of too many of those for too long. So those are the three phases. And like I said, before, your biggest, juiciest profits and your best ability to help somebody adjust to the realities of their life and do better with their life is going to be in the pre-foreclosure state, which is why I love being a foreclosure consultant. It can be frustrating at times because people don't ever want to admit they overbought the house and they need to move down to a smaller house and they need to restructure their financial life. Like, nobody ever wants to admit that until it's smacking them in the face. Okay. But every so often I get somebody that I can really work with and we can change the dynamic of their life. And 3 or 4 years later, because they avoided foreclosure, they are able to buy their own house again and succeed. Okay. The problem with foreclosure consulting and buying foreclosures is there are a lot of unscrupulous investors out there. And so many states have started to enact laws to protect the consumer, to protect the uneducated public. And so you have to be very careful if you live in one of those jurisdictions. I know Maryland is one of them because that's where I took my foreclosure consulting class. I was actually the charter treasurer of the Maryland Association of Professional Foreclosure Consultants, and part of implementing the training system that a lot of people then went through. I don't think that body is still in place today, but there are training programs that are built on that work. Okay. But that was 2007, right? So that was it's 22 now. So that's like 15 years ago. Okay. Each state has different laws and you want to be very careful to make sure that you abide by the laws. In Maryland, the way it is if you advertise, prevent foreclosure, stay in your home, help you help you prevent foreclosure, help you with foreclosure, anything that says foreclosure, if you advertise that, you cannot buy the house. And so what I did is I was the legal distance between the investor and the homeowner. I would help the homeowner as much as possible, help them negotiate with the bank if we could do a loan modification or some kind of a reprieve from their payments. And then if they couldn't, I would connect them with an investor for a fee. Of course, the investor would pay my fee. The homeowner wouldn't have to pay my fee. The investor would pay my fee. And it was a win-win-win. It was a win for me. I get to make money helping people. It was a win for the homeowner. They got to get out of a bad situation before it got worse. And it was a win for the investor. They were able to acquire a property at a decent enough price that they could still profit later on. Okay. We're going to talk more about this in one of my upcoming classes this year, Foreclosure Consulting 101. All right. Even if you're in a state that doesn't require this strict of a boundary between foreclosure consulting and buying the property, you may consider using the tactics in this class to find properties to buy. Okay. It's an ethical way to find people who need to sell their properties in a hurry and help them. I'm all about creating win-win-win solutions. All right. All right. All right. Next one we're going to talk about is short sales. Okay. So remember back in here, I talked about foreclosures and how you could maybe buy the property from the bank as an REO. Whether it's an REO or it's just upside down, there are a lot of properties that have no equity or they owe more than it's actually worth. And the way a short sale works is what you are basically doing is you are getting the lender to accept less than what is owed on the property as payment in full. So the property they owe, let's say, you know what? I'll use a real world example. They're foreclosing on my dad's house. He passed away just over 2 years ago. He owes $84,000 on the house. I went out there. I did my research when I was trying to settle out his affairs, and working with in concert with my sister, who's actually the executor of the estate, doing what I could because I had the time. They didn't have the time, and my supervisor gave me the time. So I'm working on that, and I discovered that the property is really only worth about 30. I don't know what happened that he ended up with an $80,000 mortgage against a $30,000 property. I don't know, because he bought it well after the market crashed. I just don't understand how that happens. I kind of wonder if there wasn't some fraud involved. You know, a lot of elderly people get scammed and frauded when it comes to any kind of real estate. And so that's a whole nother discussion. But his property, now it's up to 84,000 and they're foreclosing on it. It's only worth 30. Nobody's going to pay 80 something. What's likely to happen is at the foreclosure sale, the bank is going to buy it and they're going to list it for like 84, 85. Okay. Nobody's going to buy that. And so if the bank doesn't pay the tax on it, well, I already got people who are like, I know I want that property and I'm going to wait till it goes to tax sale. I'm a bid on the tax and I hope they get it too. They're not related to family. So it's no skin off my teeth. But if the bank doesn't, somebody's got to come in and convince the bank, you don't need to keep wasting your time selling this property for 85, 84 when it's only worth 30. That paperwork, that process of getting the bank to say, yes, you can only pay me 30,000 and I will accept that to write off this loan. That's the short sale process. It's a cumbersome, laborious process. I recommend, if you ever want to work on short sales, that you definitely sit down with somebody who knows how to do it, like a realtor who's good at negotiating them, or a real estate investor who's good at doing them when you're not going through a realtor. Okay, because a lot of your foreclosures right now, they're going to be upside down. So if you want to buy foreclosures, you are going to want to learn how to do the short sale process, and you can catch it early enough in the pre-foreclosure stage that you might have the 8 or 9 months or so, 6 months or so to work a short sale process. Okay. Sometimes lenders will do this to avoid foreclosure costs because they figure, hey, some money's better than no money, or maybe they just want to get things off of their records, bad debt off their records. But what I understand about short sales, and I've only tried this one, and it was a headache, and I said, forget it. All right. It's not for me. Some people are very detail oriented. I'm a big picture, free spirited thinking person, right? Like I'm just like, woo, let's go have some fun. I really don't want to go through 20 pieces of paperwork. I don't care if I can make $10,000. I can make $10,000 talking and having fun. so I'm going to do that. Let somebody else make their money their way, right? But if you are interested in that, if the property, don't be dissuaded. That's what I was going to say, is don't be dissuaded when the bank says no, because this month they don't take your offer of 30, but next month they've struck off some of the debt, and now it's maybe on their insurance records they only need to recoup 75%. 75,000. And then the month after that, maybe they only need to recoup 65,000. I'm making an example. I don't know if those are exact numbers of how the banks do it. Each bank has their own algorithm, but over time, they strike off enough of that debt that your lowball offer matches what they can accept and still satisfy their insurance. And a match is made, and now you've got a property. All right. So that's a short sale. But remember, with a short sale, just because it sounds like, oh, this is so cool, I'm getting a short sale, you still got to make your money when you buy. All right. Landlording is definitely not for the faint of heart. This is where you rent a property out to someone else. I believe you really got to have a thick skin to deal with tenants and toilets. And I know for a lot of people, it helps to be the property manager and not the owner. I found this to be true for myself because I was really, really good at managing other people's properties. I had an internal block of managing mine. I'm going to tell you real quick how I got over it. And I don't want to belabor the point too much, but I think this is going to help somebody break free in their life. So that's why I'm going to share it with you real quick. I had a potential tenant. I had two potential tenants that really broke me of being a poor landlord. And by poor landlord, I mean not holding them accountable when they didn't want to pay rent and trying to, work with them and accept all the sob story and all this other stuff. I had one potential tenant, hadn't even moved into the house yet, and was like, well, you're a Christian, so you should let me live here for free. And I was like, letting you live here for free is stealing from the bank, and God doesn't like stealing. So she was out. She didn't even get in. And then there was one that I really liked. We'd interviewed, I'd visited her house. I thought she was going to be a really good fit. And she had a eviction. But think about my life, okay? 800 something $1,000 in debt. No one would rent to me. Okay. I want you to stop for a second and think. I was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. Okay. I come home from this trip. My house is gone. Like, I literally get home and have no place to stay. Do you know how hard it is to rent something when you need a place tonight? Nobody wants to rent to you when you need a place tonight. Let me say that again, okay? I want you to understand what I'm talking about here, because I've lived it. I'm not saying these things that I'm just some mean old selfish what do you call it? Slumlord that isn't going to be nice to people, doesn't have any heart for people. Oh, I have a heart for people. I have a huge heart for people. And I remember how hard it was. I couldn't find anybody to rent to me because I needed a place to stay that night. And nobody wants to rent to you because they figure you just got evicted. And so it's when somebody like that comes to me, I'm willing to work with them. If you can show me that you've been paying your bills on time, and you may not have good credit, but you've been paying your bills on time, you've been doing everything you're supposed to do to try to do something better for your family. Oh, I'm going to give you a chance. Okay. But this lady said the reason she got evicted was because some family members had some sicknesses, and it was more important for her to pay their bills than to pay her rent. And I'm not knocking anybody's connection to your family, but you are not going to live in one of my properties if your priority isn't paying your rent. It's not that I'm hard-hearted, and it's not that I'm mean. I love everybody. I want the best for everybody. I especially love when I can have a single mom in one of my properties, and we can get her to where she is, where she can buy the property, rent to own the property. Like that makes my heart sing. But when you go to rent on one of my properties, I need to know that you're going to pay that rent. Because if you're not going to pay that rent, there are a long line of people who are willing to pay it because they want to live in a quality property with a quality landlord. All right. So it took me a while to get to this that I'm saying to you today. But that lady right there, those two ladies, they were the start. They were the start of the change. They were the catalyst. I want to thank the Lord for those ladies because they were the catalyst for my change, y'all. All right, so you gotta have a thick skin. You gotta have a good process. You gotta be willing to hold to the process, because even though there are good people out there who fall on hard times, generally speaking, if you don't hold to your processes, people are going to take advantage of you over and over and over again. Yep, exactly. Now those people were telling me they weren't going to pay, and you know what? I wish them the best, but they're going to not pay somebody else their $2,500 a month. All right. So if you're interested in renting out property, I do want to say that niches can sometimes get you higher rent. So like I accept pets in my properties. I accept pets in all my properties. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't accept pets. I don't put in rules that you can't smoke, because the way I feel about it is I can't stop you from doing it anyway, because you're going to do it whether you want to or not. Now, I prefer them not to smoke. I mean, I it might say something in there, but I'm not going to go crazy about it, because people are going to do what they're going to do. Right. And so you have to, I know smoking is another big one. You have to understand the market that you want. I get so many people who are grateful to me that they can have their dog. And the only people that I don't let rent are the ones that my insurance says can't rent. The only dogs that can't come in. And the pets have to be a certain thing. Otherwise, my insurance says no, that's my only qualification. And I get people who are very happy. All of my tenants have been there at least, let's see, that one's going on 7 years. So at least 7 years. Okay. So thanks to Mr. Landlord, I'm doing something right. Okay. And they take good care of the properties. They let me know when something's going wrong and things like that. The insurance policy. So back on that pet thing, the insurance policy, your homeowner's insurance, your renter's insurance, especially when you transition to a investment policy, they will specify certain breeds that you can't have in the property, and they will specify a certain weight, or you have to pay more. And I ain't trying to pay more. Now I will be willing to work with somebody if they're willing to pay more, but I haven't found anybody yet that needed to. All right. Another one that people, cater to, they might cater to colleges. A lot of people are doing assisted living. You heard my friend's example with the corporate executive housing. Some people in some jurisdictions do like people groups like faith or, mature communities. You got to understand your local policies on what's a protected class and what's not a protected class as far as equal opportunity before you do any of that, especially if you have more than 4 units. I think 4 is still the requirement, to where, below that you can do whatever you want to do, but above that, you've got to be very careful to make sure that you're treating everybody equally. Okay. With landlording, and that's the same thing I've been saying about a lot of properties, avoid the trap of, oh, this is going to appreciate one day and I'm going to be so rich. Somebody was teaching the other day, they said a property doubles in value every 10 years. And I'm like, that one that we got stuck holding the bag with, that I paid $405 for at the height of the market, and that when the market crash was only worth $180, it has not doubled in price. So, we got to make our money when we buy. Okay. All right. You're going to hear me say that a lot because it's so true. All right. When it comes to landlording, one of the things that I want to caution everybody is you got to balance your effort with your profit. And by that, I mean, the more effort you put in, the more profit you get. The more you pass off to somebody else, the less profit you get. Hiring the pros, you might be able to get stuff done. You might be able to get it done faster. You might be able to get it done more. You have more of a comfort level. Okay. But if you can fix it yourself, if you can get an investor buddy to come in there and it still be in code and all that stuff. And if you can get things done on a cheaper level, you're going to save more money. A lot of investors lose money because this goes wrong and they pay $450 to this plumber, where if they went to their local REIA group and built relationships with a good real estate investor friendly plumber, they would only have to pay $100. Okay. And so, like for me, I'm in that awkward situation where most of my properties are still on the East Coast. So my relationships with those trades have gone stale, and I've actually switched to what do you call them? You call them when something goes wrong, the home warranty, not American Home Shield. I hope they don't sue me for saying that. They have not worked well with me in the past. There are other companies I recommend. Maybe I need to delete that from the recording. I don't know, but I have switched to those because I just don't know anybody anymore. I'm not their local, I just don't know anybody to be able to call somebody. So I switched most of those properties over to that. Okay. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to hire a property manager and that's going to be passive income and I'm not going to have to do anything. It's going to be set and forget it. But you still have to manage the manager. And I had a manager steal off with $5,000 of my money. The person didn't pay. We took him to court. That's what he was supposed to do. That's why he was the property manager. I'm back and forth between Tampa and Qatar in the desert, right? So they didn't pay. And then they go to court and they get the judgment. I'm thinking, wow, I'm so glad I had this property manager. Well, then he doesn't do the next step of filing. Remember I said before, if you sue somebody, you don't just get the judgment. You got to take that judgment and do something with it to get the money. Well, he didn't because the renter had hired his sister. So he went through the paper rigmarole and he did everything on paper, but he didn't get me the money. So that was a long battle that I had to fight. And I couldn't even get my key back from I literally had to track down his address, which is really funny because you're not supposed to be able to do that the way he had his company and everything set up. Oh, but I found his address and I camped out in front of his house. And the next thing I know, I had my key back in the mail. So some advice I would give you if you're interested in renting out properties, go out to Mr. Landlord. He's got a fantastic forum. Bigger Pockets also has a forum. I got a little blog there. I hadn't been using it much last year. I'm gonna start getting better about that this year. And if you're in the DMV, there's a great women's group that Mary Jo Whalen does at Maria, or I'm not sure who does it right now. She might have moved on, but they have a lot of great side groups like millennials group, women investors, and all kinds of little side groups. And you want to look for a real estate investment agency that or group that that teaches you. Okay. All right. I feel that I've been so excited, and I know that I'm a little bit over time here. I want to start trying to keep these to an hour, but if y'all just give me about 5 or so more minutes, we're almost done. Leapfrogging is a great technique. I don't want anybody to underestimate the power of this. I've seen several women back in a time where women of color rarely had anything to their name that you knew of, right? Become financially independent through this strategy. And this is basically where you buy a fixer-upper, you live in it for 2 years, and then you go buy another one. You pay that down, you fix it up, you go buy another one. And because you've been in it for 2 years, now the next one you buy, you can buy it with a residential loan instead of a commercial loan. All right. This is going to give you the cheapest costs as far as your loan. It's going to give you good tax benefits, and it's going to help you build experience as you go. I am not a fan of loans for investments. Okay. Anybody who's been around me that long, you know that. But so I give you this strategy. I coined this strategy back when I had bought into the whole other people's money and leveraging debt strategies. And so again, kind of like my other chart, I don't want to go through the process of re-registering anything. So, there it is. But really, my experience has just been that so often taking on loans for your properties, it leads to stress when you can't fill it. It leads to decreased cash flow. And there's usually a way to do what you want to do without taking on a whole lot of debt, unless it's a property you're living in. And then we can talk later about the guidelines I would give you for that. Okay. You want to find, and this is especially good if you are comfortable living in a lower cost neighborhood where you can get that property and really aggressively pay it down. Okay. So that when you go to the next one, you've got good cash flow. This is a very fast strategy. If you want to know more about the baseline theory that caused me to coin this leapfrogging strategy, you can read John Schwab's Building Wealth One House at a Time. The only difference between what I'm saying and he's saying is he's saying buy a house once a year, and he shows you how to do it. But I'm saying live in the house. Okay. Live in the house, get the benefits of that, fix it up, move to the next one. All right. I did not come up with that. I came up with the term. I did not come up with the strategy myself. Okay. In fact, I think it was Venus Cox or somebody. It was one of those real estate ladies who did that. And then everybody else in my real estate group started doing it. And I was like, oh, wow, this works. Okay. So what I want to talk to you about before I go is I want to talk about creative financing strategies. And you can see I've got a little course blurby down here. So yes, we are going to talk about these in more detail. So I'm only going to cover them briefly right now. Okay. Some creative financing strategies are things called lease option. You could do rent to owns, land contracts, or which is also owner financing. Subject to, that's the one I've been doing the most. Never mind. Let me not say it that way. That's the one that I have been most interested in the last year. Unfortunately, with my move to Texas, some of those deals that you've already heard about have fallen through. So I'm kind of like, but I know now that the process works, and I'm excited to do more of it once I get a good footing here in Texas. All right. The reason creative financing strategies work is because some sellers care more about the price, others care more about the terms, and if you can give them what they want, they're willing to work with you on the other thing. So if somebody has a certain price and you don't want to pay that price, but they're willing to work with you on the terms, you can get you a good deal. Some people don't care about the price. They just want the money now. So if you can get them the money now, they're willing to take a lower price, or they're willing to distribute the price, or almost any structure you can think of will work as long as it's legal. All right. And so you need to check in your jurisdictions about which ones are legal, because some of these aren't legal everywhere. Like, for example, in Texas, if you do a lease option, they have to be on the deed in 6 months. And some people get around that by renewing their lease every 6 months. And some people get around that by doing a selling, like, no kidding, I'm selling it to you with owner financing. Okay. So there's a lot of possibilities. The possibilities are endless. Don't be afraid to ask, but make sure you work with a reputable title company or real estate attorney in your jurisdiction that you're investing in so that you can stay out of trouble. I don't want to go to jail. All right. Now, I was going to talk about each of these in a little bit more detail, but I'm going to go ahead and save that for the course. I thought I would do it because I want to entice you to come back, but I realized I have bitten off more than I can chew for tonight. So I'm just going to show you the slides real quick. Okay. If you are interested in creative financing strategies in Louisiana, a great person to talk to is Roger Ketchum. He goes to Real Estate 360 and also the Shreveport-Bossier Real Estate Association. If you're in northern Louisiana, of course. If you are in East Texas, again, seek out Roger. If you are in the DFW area, I've been working with Tim Cook, and I've been very impressed with the education that he has put together, and very impressed with the real estate group that he runs here in West DFW. Okay. Land contract is basically owner financing, where you're basically selling something to somebody with a private mortgage, or you're buying a property from a seller with a private mortgage. Okay. And so this could be a really effective way to make something happen when you can't go get traditional funding. Okay. But again, if you are selling a property to a rent to owner, right? If somebody's renting to own a property you are selling it to them. I highly, highly, highly recommend you work with a title company or a loan originator or loan servicer so that you have all of your documentation in a row. Oh, yep, I have it down here. It's Tim Cook. Okay. Yeah, he's great. He's great, y'all. Subject to, both Roger and Tim teach fantastic subject to classes. And subject to is where you're basically taking over the loan. We will talk more about this in the creative financing. Some of you saw my journey of buying the red church. We were going to buy the 5,000 square foot commercial property. Only about 20 or so thousand was left on it. Take off over the payments for 4 years, and then it would have been ours. Unfortunately, I'm here in Texas. That drive back and forth was just too much. I'm not going to be able to execute the community programs I wanted to. So that deal. And then there was another one that some of you have heard about. Those deals that were in Louisiana, they have fallen through because I just realized it was too much on me. Do I want those properties? Could I turn them around? Sure, I could, but it's just too much on me. So you know what I did? I talked to Roger. I said, hey, here's some properties you might be interested in. Oh my goodness. This is why it's good to be connected. Okay. Commercial is anything that's not residential. I love commercial. It's definitely something that I've been involved with. supporting for the last 20 years as far as helping churches find commercial property. That's something that I've done, finding properties to rent, finding storefronts to rent, finding properties to buy. The great thing about investing in commercial real estate is that you get a higher income potential than if you were buying the same cost of property, residential, generally speaking, right? Because it's their business, you got a lot more incentive for your tenants to protect the property. You definitely don't get as many calls in the midnight hour, and you can pass off more costs to your tenants. That's a great thing right there. Now, I will say that commercial is not for the faint of heart, and it is costly. There's a higher initial cost.
Your input is invalid.
And there is a higher tenant expectation. So, and the other thing about commercial, I discovered this the hard way, is you can't just go have Bubba and your cousin Jim install stuff. You got to make sure that you meet all the codes and stuff, because most jurisdictions take the zoning very seriously, and they want to make sure that your property is built or renovated to the fire standards and protection of public safety. Okay. The cool thing about commercials, there's a lot of ways that you can acquire commercial, whether it's an apartment complex or whether it's a retail strip center, and you can also use it. Okay. We talk more about that in the Commercial Real Estate 101, and I walk you through several examples of how you can really profit. Now, I've got this one here that says apartments. I meant to change the title. This is part of the apartments. This slide is in the apartments because these are apartments. But the point that I want to make with this is you can actually find great commercial deals driving for dollars. We'll talk more about that. I think the next one driving for dollars, or is it the one after that? Either next month or the month after, we're going to be doing driving for dollars. I think it's next month. Don't quote me on that. We'll have to go back to the first slide. But you're going to learn all about how to find these diamonds in the rough and how to make them profitable for you. I've got land here. You see that I don't have a class on land, okay? A lot of people like land. They're not making more of it. It's a great asset to have, but it's very hard to do as a new investor, not because it's not a great thing to have, but because most new investors don't have the money to make land a positive cash flow. So they end up with a negative cash flow. Then they realize when something goes wrong, they can't sell it in a hurry. And not only that, land doesn't depreciate. The property on the land depreciates. So you don't even get that big benefit on your taxes. Okay. I do like land, but we're not going to talk about land in a whole lot of detail, although I will cover it briefly when we get to commercial, because there's things that you can do with land if you can buy the land at a good enough price. Oh, I do have another slide on it here. Here's some of those ways. So never mind. I'm going to talk about it right now. So some things that you can do with land is you can hold it to see if the value goes up. You can work with a developer to subdivide it and develop a planned community or something on it. If you know that a change is coming soon, and we will talk more details about land speculating in that commercial class, you can acquire land or acquire an interest in the land because something's coming that's going to make that price skyrocket. Another thing, and this is a very popular thing that people can do with land right now. I mean, like right now, if you've got land and you don't know what else to do with it and it's burning a hole in your pocket, or you got negative cash flow, consider renting out the space for boat storage, RV storage, billboards, things like that. Be very careful with billboards. Make sure you bring an attorney on to help you negotiate those contracts, because I was working one of those deals for me and my ex-husband, and man, they are sharks. Okay. And then another thing about land is if you know somebody that's got land and you know someone who likes to develop land, bring them together, deal making, okay? But the bottom line I want you to remember with land is just because it's land and just because they're not making more of it, please do not go into negative cash flow on land. Unless this is land, well, I still don't want you to go on negative cash flow on it. But I mean, if it's like the perfect land and you're going to retire on it in 5 years and you can pay for it in a year. And I don't know, I really don't like going into debt for land. So I'm just going to stop now. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make that nice because, I know how people are about their land, but I'm just like, I'm trying to help you make money. Okay, before I go on to private lending, I see, do you have recommendation for Alabama? I do not have a recommendation for Alabama real estate. I admit when I was living in Alabama, my only focus was trying to save my marriage and trying to pick up the pieces of my life after that marriage. I do not have good recommendations for any kind of real estate professionals in Alabama because I just never had the time or the energy to connect with them at that point. However, the recommendations I'm going to give in a minute about how to find a good real estate investment association, they will help you determine if the ones you find in Alabama are ones you want to spend your time with. Okay. And so the next topic that I want to cover is private lending. And I mentioned that this was on the time money continuum twice. I kind of already gave you an overview of how this worked. All of us pulled our money together. We bought a house, right? The investor who took all of our money, we were her private lenders. Okay. Some people have significant amounts of money in their IRA, especially if you roll that into a self-directed IRA. You can then become a hard money lender for a new investor or anybody else who's experienced. It doesn't have to be new. I mean, I wouldn't use my IRA on a brand new investor, right? Unless they're going to let me mentor them, right? But you can roll your IRA over into what's called a self-directed IRA. You can use that to lend money as a hard money lender and doing private mortgages for people who buy your properties. And you can do that. And if you do it in a self-directed IRA, it's tax-free. All your profit is tax-free. Okay.
Your input is invalid.
All right. So I don't know what's going on with the free conference call, but it is not liking me today. All right. But we're almost done. I do want to make a comment about private lending because I don't like taking on debt. It burned me. It wasted 12 years of my life, and I don't ever want to go back to being in debt. But I also believe in giving you the most complete education. And when you learn how debt and instruments and private lending works, it allows you to have more creative win-win solutions in your back pocket for being able to work out other deals for people that you're trying to create those win-win solutions for. Okay. So that's why I do teach private lending. All right. Note buying, this is definitely on my list. I thought it was going to be what I do this year, but this year I'm going to learn about tax deeds. So we're pushing this back a year. And every year I try to learn something new from experience. Like I can teach you from the book, right? But I want to be able to teach the whole class from experience and decide what I like and don't like, Note buying, you can profit because basically you're buying underperforming notes. So somebody's not paying their note. They have a note with the bank for their mortgage. They're not paying it, or they're not paying enough. The bank sells that to somebody else, and that somebody else can be you. And if you buy that note, you can either collect against it, you can restructure it, or you can resell that at a profit if you find it at a good enough deal. And so what restructuring looks like is it looks like this person has $100,000 loan. They're supposed to be paying $700 a month. They're not paying $700 a month. So the bank sells off that loan for, I don't know, $5,000. Let's call it $20,000 because I don't know what the current rates are. Let's call it $20,000. I buy that note for $20,000. I have rights to this person's long-term payments to fulfill this $100,000 loan, but they're not paying it. So what I can do is come in and say, hey, I'm the new owner of my company, not me. My company is the new owner of your loan, and we are willing to restructure this loan to where you only have to pay us back $60,000. Keep in mind, I paid $20 for the note to the bank, who was owed $100 but wasn't getting nothing. All right. So the bank wins. The person in the house wins because now they just saved $40,000 without even having to do anything. And then if they start paying, maybe I drop their payment down or whatever I calculate, whatever it amortizes to. Maybe it's like $400 a month, or maybe it's like $500 a month, or whatever it is. Because I'm going to give them a healthy interest for my time and trust and concern that they may not pay me. Right? We want to make it fair and equitable. Okay. This is the interesting thing for those of you who are in the ministry. It's interesting to me that the Bible tells us don't become a debtor, but then it gives us instructions how if we make loans to other people, what to do and not do. That's another topic for another day. But it's like, but the Bible's very clear. If you're gonna make somebody a loan, don't you overcharge them on interest. Be reasonable and fair. And fair is you ain't been paying your bills. You deserve to have a little bit higher interest because I don't know if you're going to keep paying. I might only get 3 payments out of you. Right? So that's fair. That's fair. But we're not going to charge you 30%. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So anyway, you restructure it. You restructure it to a win-win-win. Or if you get it cheap enough, you can resell it at a profit. If we're getting started in note buying, there are a couple people that I'm exploring. That's going to be one of those things next year where I'm going to let people look over my shoulder, but you might know somebody locally that does it. There's a big note buying academy here in Dallas, about 2 hours away from me, 2.5 hours away from me. And, there's different places locally where you can do it. But it's one of those things where once you do it and get good at and people know that you will close a deal, more will come to you. Okay. It's a very much of a personal business. It's not, there's no MLS for loans. Not yet. Ooh, that might be a good business idea. Okay. One of the great things about it is that you have a lot of different ways that you can profit with notes. But again, there are some serious risks. And for one, you don't have first place. So if there's a tax lien, or if they owe the IRS, or they owe the county taxes or the parish taxes, you could easily get wiped if somebody forecloses. Okay. Because your note might be like a second or third position, and whatever gets sold for you, it may not be enough to pay you. Okay. So that's a big thing. That's a big risk. Okay. Like I said before, if you succeed with a note, you will be able to easily get more. Okay. All right. Deal making is the win-win-win. And this is where you're bringing people together for profit. Okay. If the numbers work, a property will always sell fast. And so this is why I say one of the biggest assets that an investor has is relationships. And this is also why I say you have to learn how to build those relationships with the investor's secret weapon. Who remembers what the investor's secret weapon is? Oops, I already showed it. Okay. The investor's secret weapon is other investors. And that's why real estate investment associations are so important. These offer an excellent avenue to learn from local investors. A lot of them will have deal making sessions, like the ones that you want to be a part of. If you have a choice in your area, sometimes we don't, but if you have a choice in your area, the ones you want to be a part of are the ones that have deal making sessions that or help you build your team of professionals, because they have a good mix of all kinds of trades, realtors, investors, and that will really, really teach you. Okay. You want to get to know who's who. You want to find out who's in the game and who's just kind of sitting there. And you want to also find out who's aligned with your values. I've had so many investors want to work with me, but when I dug into who they were, I didn't want to be aligned with them. I fully expect to be, we're already international, but I fully expect this to be a multi-million-dollar company in short order. And I want to be a household name. I'm not trying to have people come out and say I scammed them and it be true. Now, I'm sure people will come out and say I scammed them, but I'm going to make sure it's not true, because I'm going to carry myself with integrity. That's how I do what I do. I strive to be excellent. Sometimes I'm tired and it's not excellent, but I do my best. But I strive to be a person of integrity, and I cannot walk with you if you're just trying to scam people. I'll give you one example of that. And that is my house in Baltimore. It's rented for $975 a month. So somebody was like, "Oh, well, I can sell that to an investor in California for $150,000." Because an investor in California is used to only making 4 or 5% ROI. That property is only worth like $50,000. There's no way I'm going to feel comfortable selling it to some investor sight unseen in California for $150,000, knowing it's not worth that. What they're buying is the cash flow. And if you're only caring about cash flow, then sure, and a cash flow calculation, a spreadsheet, it's worth that, but they're never going to be able to sell it. All right. So you really want to make your own personal decisions about where you feel about things and who you want to work with. And you only do that by getting to know them and seeing how they conduct their business. Okay. One thing that I think people always wonder is, why would anybody in real estate train other people to do in real estate? Like I'm training you how to do real estate. You're going to find out in the wholesaling 101 class. One of the reasons I train for people how to do wholesaling is because I don't want to do it. I want you to find the properties and bring them to me, and I want us to work together. It's been a win-win-win. Help the homeowner, help you, help me. Okay. It's really profitable actually to help others. Like Zig Ziglar said, you help enough other people get what they want, and you can have anything you want out of life. Okay. And if you find a great deal and you can't use it, who's the first person you're going to send it to? The person who taught you how to buy that property or acquire that property or find that property. Okay. So for me, it's a win-win-win. Couple things I want to say about RIAs before I go. Some people balk at the fact that they cost membership fees. The ones that I'm a member of, they do have membership fees. Some are free if you're just in the basic level, but if you want the advanced discussions and actual deal making sessions, you've got to pay more. Some of them have a straight annual fee, and then they have all kinds of education. There's different ways to structure that, but bottom line, it's going to be hard to get all of the information you need without paying anything. But don't feel like you can't go to a free meeting and learn what you need to learn. If you're going to a solid real estate investor meeting, you will learn what you need, and you will be able to earn the money to pay your fees, okay? Or you'll be able to build a relationship with another investor. If you're in one that doesn't have a free avenue, you can build a relationship with other investors by helping them out enough, finding properties for them, and then you can then get them to cover your fees. All right. So I want to talk about scams before I go. Well, one of the biggest things that I've seen as a red flag with RIAs is there's a lot of them that won't even let you in the room if you don't pay. There's a lot of them that the meeting doesn't offer any content. Now, most real estate investor meetings are going to have a sales pitch. Somebody comes in, they teach you your strategy, they teach you just enough to want to know more, and then they meet me in the back of the room, and I'm going to sell you my course. It's a wonderful business strategy. I use that business strategy too, right? So I don't knock that business strategy, but there are some real estate investor meetings where it's all about sales, 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 and they're not offering any actionable content. And when you so you wanna be aware of that, and go to the meetings, and don't buy the stuff until you kind of get a good sense of what you want. If you're at a real estate meeting where they don't allow you to ask any real questions ever without paying, don't keep paying. My recommendation is that you walk away, because a good and local meeting is going to carry you a lot further than these guys that come to the hotel rooms. It's a free weekend, and then they want you to pay $500 for the week long, or $1,000 for the week long, or $3,000 for the week long, and you get there, and then you got to pay more for the private mentoring, and it's just more and more and more money. That's their structure. And I'm not knocking the structure, but they don't give you what you need to get out and start working. And there are other ways to get the education you need. Okay. Last one is, if your feedback isn't addressed, run far away. Okay. I know that's been a lot, but it's been a lot of fun for me. I hope it's been a lot of fun for you. I want to encourage you today, no matter where you're starting in life, it is never too late to dump debt, build wealth, and leave a legacy. Sure, the advantage of youth is that they have time, energy, and strength. But you know what's the advantage of maturity? We have experience, networking, and drumroll, judgment that the young don't have. So please, please, please be encouraged that you can win with money, and you can invest in real estate. Now, before I go into the Q&A, and if you've got questions, you can go ahead and start dropping them in the chat if you haven't already. I want to encourage you one more time. Send me $5, $10, $25, or $2,500, right? For our Global Youth Initiative. You can PayPal or Cash App the Queen of Cash Flow. Normally, this is the point in the class where I would say, if you want to dig deeper, here's my advanced class on this. Let's spend $1,000 or something. I'm not asking you for $1,000 today. I'm asking you to show me the love with $25. Show me the love with $10. You only got $5? Send me $5 for these kids. You only got $1? I will take that $1 for these kids, and you watch and see it. The Lord don't turn around and move for you and bless you above and beyond. I'm going to say 100-fold, because what we're doing is for these children. You know, some of these children that come through my Global Youth Initiative, they have never in their life had anybody make them feel like they are valuable, make them feel that they have something special to offer, or make them feel like they could actually succeed. You know, I had one moody teenager, all in her hoodie, just sulking the whole time, didn't want to be there. And by the end of the day, she was so excited. She felt like in her family that she was a round peg in a square hole, and that nothing she did was ever good enough for her family, because they were all built differently from her. And to be able to encourage her that she has something special to offer, That takes time, it takes energy, and it takes money. And I make it free for all these kids. So I'm asking you to help me cover the cost. Oh, I see the donations coming in. Yay. Thank you so much. I want to encourage you. PayPal or Cash App. Ooh, y'all are being blessed. Y'all are being generous. Ooh, I pray the Lord bless you. This is not a religious class today, but you know what? I am who I am. I pray the Lord bless you real good. PayPal or Cash App, the queen. No. PayPal or Cash App, queen of cash flow. All right. All right. That's all I've got for you tonight. If you've got some questions, I'll be happy to stay on and answer them for a little bit. Let me check the free conference call portal. I started it late, so I doubt that we're going to have people in the queue. But while you are doing your questions, I will be checking to see if there's anybody in the queue for free conference call so that I can unmute you. If you have a question and you're in free conference call, oh, hey, I'm so glad you're in the free conference call. Make sure you do *61 and that'll have you. Oh, nope. They're not in the free conference call anymore. All right. Well, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just glad you're there. I'm just glad you're there. All right. All right. I'm like, man, I feel like I put on the spot today. No, I was just trying to be nice. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any questions in the chat. So we are going once, going twice. Sold to my husband who is waiting for me to come watch TV with him. I hope you all have enjoyed this class today. Don't forget to PayPal, Queen of Cash Flow, Cash App, Queen of Cash Flow. Put something in there for global youth or just youth, and I'll know where the money's going. I appreciate you. I love y'all, and I hope that this has helped you move the needle forward in your life. I know sometimes it seems like no matter how hard you work, nothing is working out. But I'm here to tell you today, you can win with money. You can absolutely spend your time, your treasure, your talent, living out your callings instead of living for somebody else. You can have a life where you're doing what fills your heart. You can build wealth for the third and the fourth generations. And that's only the beginning, y'all. You can be freed from financial bondage and able to build the rich and fulfilling relationships that you desire. And real estate investing is one of the ways that can help you do just that. I'm JJ Conway. I hope you've enjoyed tonight. Y'all take care and be blessed.